L- Let me know if the audio is better now
Much better.
or the same, or if you can't hear me.
I can hear you perfectly, actually, and it does sound better. So, gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me tonight. We have Mythkeeper rejoining us, and for the first time, Podfinder Phil. Welcome.
Hello, happy to be here.
We're happy to have you, sir. I really enjoyed the 12 Days of Sinmas and your conclusion. I also really enjoyed the fact that you went into such in-depth detail with Sorcerian and all the other Rune Lords and the major players that were the powers of Galarian back in the day. Sorcerian's still with us, though. Hopefully we'll see more of her during one of the Mythic campaigns to come.
Oh, yes. If you watched my conclusion, I strongly suspect that she and certain peacock-themed wizard will be making their return to the narrative.
I certainly hope so. I really want to see that guy and his religion play out. The fact that he had a divine spark and was able to keep it hidden from the rest of the Rune Lords, that's quite the feat.
Yeah, Xandergul is he's going to be fun to beat into the ground once he's at full power.
Uh, I was hoping he wouldn't become the heel, but if he has to be the villain, I guess. I'm more hoping the fact that both of them team up for the Whispering Tyrant when the time comes.
That's a showdown I wouldn't mind seeing. We'll see how it plays out. I think Tarbafon would have his hands full with both of them for sure.
Before we get too far into this discussion, Podfinder, could you please give us a brief introduction of who you are and where we could find your work?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Hi, everybody. My name is Phil. On YouTube, I am known simply as Podfinder or Podfinder Phil. I am a big fan of Pathfinder and tabletop gaming in general. So, sort of following in Mythkeeper's footsteps, I decided to start a little lore channel of my own. I started out focusing mostly on the deity lore for the core 20 deities, plus Aroden and Erasni for the Pathfinder game setting, and then branched out into some other like NPCs and factions that I really liked, and then started digging into like videos that are sort of a video audio version of the player's guides that Pathfinder puts out with a little more added context and commentary. And then because I am a sucker for punishment, I decided to do some deep dives in the fall and winter on Tarbafon, and then like we were talking about uh, the 12 Days of Sinmas, which was sort of my novel length review of the history of ancient Thassalon.
Hey, Podfinder. I gotta say, I've been really enjoying your, I guess you refer to them as player guide videos. The
Oh,
So You Want
yes,
to Play
yes.
series.
Especially the Seasons of Ghost one. Thank you, Mythkeeper.
Well, thank you. I really enjoy producing those. It lets me kind of get a nice mix of both lore and mechanics, and I think those are probably my like the videos that are most useful to players out there. Like a lot of people aren't going to need like a 3-hour deep dive on Tarbafon to enjoy the game, but
Mhm.
I think these video players guides have a lot of utility for the community as a whole. So as long as people find them useful and helps them connect to the game, then I will say I've done my job. So thank you.
Yeah. Do you find, out of curiosity, I don't want to talk too much shop, but since we're both lore channels, do
Hmm.
you find a significant difference in the number of views that your different types of videos get?
Yeah, generally speaking, yes. My deity lore videos are, especially since I moved out of the core 20, those are kind of my like least popular
Mm.
for like the amount of time they've been out, especially on like minor deities. So like the Elf Pantheon, I think got overall like my least views, although with the release of Spore War, I kind of expect those to jump a little bit. But my video players guides, this So You Want to Play series tend to do I would say almost twice as well as like the deity videos that come out in the same month. Tarbathon kind of threw things off, I think, just because the view count looks a lot higher than it probably should, because people have to come back and watch it in parts. But
Oh
generally, those are
yes.
those So You Want to Play are like my most watched, whereas especially like the minor deities, those are kind of my least watched videos. But
I
luckily, the
see.
So You Want to Play are kind of easier to produce. They usually require a little bit less digging. I say usually, but I have a 25-page script for uh, the next one, which will be Outlaws of Alkenstar, because I couldn't help myself.
Oh yikes.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
Yeah, I love that campaign. It is perfect in its many imperfections. I love it for all of its flaws. So I'm excited to talk about it.
Oh, good, good. I happen to have picked up that Foundry bundle when it was available, so I've got all three of them ready to go whenever someone wants to play or run them. It's it's a nice little thing nestled right next to Geb and Nex, and then the
Hmm.
Mana Wastes. I I'm not looking forward to having an Arcane caster there, but you know, it's guns.
Yeah, just talk to your GM. This is something I touch on in my video. Like, depending on how strictly your GM wants to run the lore, your wizard could be having an extremely bad time in like fully half of the city. Uh, but that again, GM interpretation. You can hand wave some things out to make sure every party's going to have fun.
Hercules also mentions that Chibion of Tarbathon helps on the thumbnail. I agree.
Yeah, that probably helped a little bit. I was ecstatic when I had seen it before and I couldn't remember where it was. Then I realized I just kept skimming Google and the Paizo forums until I found it. I guess it's like a little toy from like the Starfinder setting. So I could not think of a better thumbnail for that video.
Also, all anything undead related does super well. So, like my top rated region deep dive is Geb, which
Mm-hmm.
is weird. I would never
I
have guessed that that would be the case. I'm sure your Bloodlords video got a lot of response.
Yes, now
But
that you're saying it, Bloodlords did a lot better than I thought it was going to do, especially for a campaign that, at least from what I can tell on like the forums and stuff, has been kind of middlingly received overall. I was not expecting it to be as popular as it was.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. Ustalov is my other like top. Like people love Ustalov. They love Geb. I think of what else. Uh, yeah, my undead video also gets a lot of views.
Oh yeah, I totally believe that.
I've just concluded my own Bloodlords campaign, and I can tell you that I found the videos from both of you extremely helpful. I just wish the one from Hollomog had come a little bit sooner, because, oh man,
Uh,
that book 3. That book 3. But,
To be honest, Holomog was not on my list at all. Like if you had if you had asked me a year ago you're going to do a region deep dive about Holomog and it's going to be an hour long, I've been like, what's there to say?
I have
Uh,
yet to watch it, but when I saw the runtime, I was like, how on earth did he do this?
it did a damn good job, too. Made me actually care about what was happening, because my players were just like, well, we're only here to find this one person. No, you have to help us with our election. It's just like, no, no, no.
so that's one of those things, I don't know if we talked a little bit about this with I think in our last video when we were talking about sort of Spore War and the different factions, but I feel like one of the things that I try to do as a GM, I don't know if a lot of GMs do this, but I'll read through a whole adventure from the from start to finish before I, uh, you know, uh, start figuring out what my players are going to play, and then I
Mm-hmm.
try to sort of gently like guide players to certain concepts. So if I know that Holomog is going to matter in book 3, I'm probably going to try to finagle a way for one of the player characters to have family or something like I imagine in Bloodlords most people are like undead, so maybe
Oh,
they're
yes.
descended from Holomog or whatever, or they were a Haloma person at one time or something like this, right? So that they have like some kind of emotional tie to whatever's going to happen in book 3, because sometimes you can't force players to care. You know what I mean?
No, you really can't. And that's been one of the things throughout some of these APs, like Strength of Thousands and whatnot, and especially with Wardens of Wildwood. Oh God, Wardens of Wildwood, which is what I'm doing to go into Spore Wars. That's a discussion for another time, though. But yeah, some really great questions, Mythkeeper. Could you maybe introduce yourself briefly and tell us where we can find your work as well?
Yes, absolutely. I'm at youtube.com slash channel, I think, at the Mythkeeper. I should know. Anyways, it's at the Mythkeeper, or you can just search for Mythkeeper. Um, and I think 3 years ago now, I can't believe it's been that long, 2.5 years ago now, I on a whim basically was like, I need a video for my players to introduce them to give them kind of a rundown of Galarian top to bottom, so that they
Hmm.
got a sense of the world. And that was the first video that I ever did. And then I don't know why I just kept making videos.
Well, I'm very thankful you did, sir.
I think it's ended up being just a lot more rewarding than I thought. Initially I just figured it would be, I don't know, a handful of folks would find it. And I think I got really lucky at one point. I might have told this story already on the last video that we did, but Iso Instagrammed my channel at one point, and that kind of blew it up.
No,
So
that's fantastic. I mean, it's because of your work that we have so much, and we have people like Podfinder Phil. I mean, we wouldn't know half the things we do at our table without you.
I do think there's something about the multimedia format that makes it a better way of consuming information than just reading it out.
It
If
really
you tell
does.
someone, right? Yeah. If you can see a map while someone's talking, or if you can see some imagery while someone's talking, it's you'll remember it more.
It also helps to the fact that people will not read on their own, especially during the course of a week between sessions, and that's something that comes up a lot, especially when it comes down to using session time to help inform people, which I don't mind doing, but it's so much better to have that video and just say here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Watch.
I
Yeah.
can't tell you. Oh, go ahead.
No, go on.
I can't tell you how many people have commented on my videos like, "Hey, can we get the MP3s? I want to listen to this on my way into work this morning."
Yes, absolutely, yes. That would be phenomenal, actually, especially when it comes to the longer subjects. Break time too.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I believe if you go to, I think it's, I'm going to get this wrong, but I think if you go to music.youtube.com, which is like their pseudo podcast thing, you can actually get audio only versions of YouTube videos, which is weird.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Neither did I. I've been ripping them with a third-party site.
Yeah, it's actually, if you go to, let me just confirm. I'm just going to
Yeah,
quickly
yeah.
head over to the URL I just said. But I'm pretty sure um, that YouTube does it. Yeah, it totally does. And if you just search, for example, for Mythkeeper on music.youtube.com, you will find all of that content as audio only. So so occasionally when people ask me now, hey, how do I get your stuff as a podcast? I tell them it is kind of a podcast
Mm-hmm.
if you know how to do it. I also think that YouTube, is it Red or YouTube Plus, or the whatever the
Yeah, the
premium
paid
version
one.
of YouTube?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, they also do audio only.
All right. So joining us as well to help host the discussion is Iron Bear Jones. Iron, could you give us a brief introduction and where we can find your stuff?
Uh, yeah. I am Iron Bear Jones. I am significantly less productive and impressive than everyone else here, but that's all right.
No, no,
Um,
no. That's not how we do. That's not how we do things, sir. Especially when you are a DM that runs so many games. In fact, you're running Triumph of the Tusk right now, aren't you?
I am every Sunday night. Um, my content is mostly GM advice, a running blog thing about the Triumph of the Tusk campaign, and anything else that just kind of catches my attention, I suppose. You can find most of that on WordPress, ironbeargames.wordpress.com. And you can also find me over on Blue Sky for like shorter random thoughts at 3 o'clock in the morning. ironbearjones.bsky.social.
Hmm. Good, good. I've enjoyed your thoughts profusely, especially the ones that have to do with Triumph. I think that what you're doing going into the beginning of the campaign was an excellent idea, especially with fleshing out Ardax. My feelings on the NPC and how they chose to do things notwithstanding, it is good to see someone make the most of the situation, especially when we don't get certain things in the back matter. Which is kind of the opposite today with Spore Wars, because in the back matter of Spore Wars, we get the entire religion of Tree Raiser. Isn't that exciting?
Yeah, that's cool.
Certainly is for
I've
me. I
been
can make another
enjoying
video.
all of them.
Ah, yes,
Yeah,
yes.
exactly.
Praise Tree Raiser.
I wouldn't go that far.
Okay. Oh, Hercules is asking for the URL to your blog, Iron, if you could put it in the Discord, please.
Yes, I can.
Thank you. So, I think the first thing to do would be the customary recap. How aware of the story is everyone? Does everyone remember what happened in book one? Would you like me to give a brief recap, or do you want me to do something a little more in depth before we get started? Because we have quite a bit that happened.
Yeah. I guess my question for Podfinder is, did you get a chance to listen to or watch the book one discussion?
I got through almost all of it, so I would say I'm pretty well caught up.
Okay.
Okay, cool. So yeah,
So
maybe a high level summary of what happened in book one.
absolutely. So, the players, for some reason, are on Latana Beach, and they repel a plague barge along with a dragon rider and a corrupted knight of Last Wall, and that makes them the queen's favored. A few months later, the queen returns a message to them and basically says, I want to get together an Carthan alliance to deal with this obnoxious Tar-Baphon person. And that involves getting all the surrounding countries without Lake and Carthan. I believe that is Druma, Ustalav, Nimrothis, excuse me, Multhun, Zer, and Keonan. Did I miss anybody? Did I say Druma?
Last Wall is also on that list as well, which is not a country anymore, but they have like the knights are still like doing their nightly thing.
Ah, yes, the loose confederation of Last Wall and their king in exile. I remember him now. He's very handsome.
Yep, yep.
So, the queen would like to put together EA, and at this meeting, she wants everyone to agree to help each other, and basically, with the regular political misgivings between two certain countries I will not mention, things go pretty well. And while everyone's about to sign the documents and whatnot, some assassins burst in from, wouldn't you know, Razmir, and one of the Razmir delegates that's representing them, has no idea what's happening. So after that's dealt with and the assassins are killed, they have to go to Zaire with this person and basically investigate why assassins were put upon them for the delegation. And, you know, like, is Tar-Baphon involved and whatnot? There are very, very heavy tones of Tar-Baphon. Like, we're setting things up there, despite the fact that it's obviously called Spore Wars, and that the handbook for the players says, like, hey, it's the thing about Tree Raiser and killing Tree Raiser and demons. We get to Zare and do our investigation. A few moments later in the sewers, while we're killing more demons, we find a cult within a cult, and then we find some guy who is not only infected with a otherworldly spore called a Jaharlu spore, but he's actually tethered to it and telepathically linked to a demon that's controlling him. After defeating him, however, the jig is up, and the demon, whose name is Lucarazel, basically says, like, well, it's been fun, but if I don't set off the bomb now, I'll never get the elves. They're going to find me. It's only a matter of time. So he blows up Green Gold, where the delegation is staying. As the PCs make their way back, they begin to see all the devastation that has happened. They are too late, of course. It is the traditional Payaso 0 to 11 cartoon villainry here. They have to go around town not only saving people, but dealing with the infestation of this Jaharlu spore. They do a small amount of research on it. They find out that the Jaharlu spore is indeed telepathic, and for some reason the research track demands that they eat it. I'm still questioning that. I don't think researchers actually do that, but that's just me. So we get to the Fallout Ground Zero of the Temple of Calistria, where the explosion came from, and Lucarazel is there underground. Once we open up a secret location, which is dealt by destroying 3 fungal nodes around Green Gold. We open that up, and we manage to defeat a demon. And after that is where our story will now begin, because the queen is about to make her entrance into Green Gold and do what she does best in this entire campaign, which is show up, cry, and deliver exposition.
Now remind me, do the players have met Talandia at this point? Is this
Oh, yeah.
Do they meet them in? Yeah, they met her in the first adventure as well. Yeah.
Oh yeah, the big party at the beginning after the beach attack and whatnot. But the liaison that's been with them the entire time has been her cousin, because she has this thing where she's absolutely paranoid about Tarbathon, because Tarbathon has this thing where not only can he send nuclear bombs at people, but he has the tendency to be politically mindful. So if all the high-level politicians of all these countries were in the same room instead of their second bananas like these delegates were, he would absolutely move and destroy them. So her entire plan hinges on the fact that she gets like the next level down or a couple levels down. People who are still influential enough in their own right, who can actually affect change within the country and sign the Incarthan Alliance, thus making some progress towards the war with the Whispering Tyrant.
Mm-hmm.
So for that reason alone, she was not in Green Gold during the deliberations and whatnot. She wanted to be, but I believe you touched on this, Mythkeeper. She has an artifact called the Verdurn Crown that she can actually see through people's eyes, and it says several times in the module that she does that with her cousin.
Yeah, she can scry on any elf that recognizes her as the sovereign, which is kind of a cool ability.
It's also kind of an invasion of privacy, but I guess you consent to that. You consent to that as an elf.
Yeah.
It's just randomly eating dinner. And she just...
Talandia, is that you?
Yeah, it's just like, hi, just catching up. Oh, God. So she comes to the site to basically say, you know, like, oh, this is terrible. What has happened here? You know, like, we really have to do something about Tree Raiser now. I was going to focus on Tarbathon, but it's clear that Tree Raiser will no longer wait. we've been complacent for too long. You know, like you guys, could you go to the Tanglebriar and catch up with one of my wizards who's researching with his Ekaj escort, and bring back his research and him. I haven't heard from him in a bit. I'm starting to get worried. Everything that we're going to do hinges on them. And as this dialogue is playing out, everything kind of like fades to sepia, and you get your first war interlude, because this is how a lot of things happen coincidentally within the campaign. As the PCs take on new missions and accomplish things, the elves themselves make progress within the war. And in order for the elves to make meaningful progress, they have to use what's called triumph points. Now, Podfinder, are you aware of how we get triumph points?
Not in this specific campaign, but I just read through Curtain Call, so I can probably guess.
Oh, yep. Let's hear your educated guess, because it is similar to the victory point subsystem, and it is similar to the production points of Curtain Call. So that is good that you were aware of that.
Yeah, so it's my guess is it's probably just the accumulation of points by facing trials. Those might be single skill checks, or more likely something structured like a chase, where you complete a series of challenges, each of which can be bypassed with like 2 or 3 or 4 checks of different types, be they attack rolls, skill checks, whatever. And the degree of, or the number of times you succeed roughly corresponds to the amount of points you get, and those are built up over the campaign and then spent, presumably by the elves in this case, to make progress in the war. Am I in the ballpark?
You are absolutely correct, except for that last part. They are spent by the PCs.
Okay, all right.
So I made a handy-dandy little sheet in Excel that keeps track of when we've used a triumph point, when we haven't used a triumph point, and when we have not triggered something that happens within a chapter. The war interludes themselves take place in Chapter 1. There's 2 of them, 4 in Chapter 2, and 4 in Chapter 3, and you can see the player rewards on the right, the benefits for the Keonan, and what the consequences are for Keonan in the red.
Love that.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Very cool.
I am a
Yeah.
mathematician. I love logistics. This is what I do. So,
As an engineer, I can relate.
oh God. Oh, nice. Most of my players are IT and everything. Iron is in marketing. Oh God, we have a lot of professionals, coincidentally.
Yep. I also write code for a living.
Oh, coder, programmer. Nice.
It's almost like this hobby draws a certain type of person.
No, absolutely not. Where are all those theater kids for Curtain Call then?
It's true. There are different kinds of nerds.
So, the Queen has delivered to you this mission. However, at the same time that this mission is going on, Riverspire is getting attacked. And my first question was, what the hell is Riverspire? So, Riverspire...
Oh,
go ahead. Yes, please.
I was going to say, if you're on the Mythkeeper Club channel, then last week you would have gotten the Keonan, finally have done a Keonan
The deep
Legion
dive. Yes.
So I do talk about Riverspire. It's a weird place. It's a weird place. Everyone's kind of related.
Well, it gets a little bit weirder, because if you don't spend a triumph point, you can't evacuate the citizens safely, along with a fair amount of the town's resources, and everyone's either captured or killed, and then Tree Razor's army just kind of occupies the settlement. In fact, they put out a call for mercenaries. Who would do that? After you just had the Incarthan alliance with Queen Talandia and all of her allies, who's going to come as a mercenary to Riverspire to work for Tree Razor?
I mean, if the coin's good enough, you got the Black Jackets for sure.
Who are the Black Jackets, sir?
That is
They're
Druma's,
yeah.
like not quite private, but extremely well funded and well prepared mercenary force.
Oh dear God. Like, but I thought they liked white. I thought they liked being clean and not dirtying their hands with assassinations and stuff.
That's why you have the black jackets.
Huh. Okay. All right. All right. So,
I don't actually know if the black jackets would go for Tree Raiser. They might consider it based on coin, but he's very clearly a destabilizing force. So I think they might be
Yeah.
tempted, but I seriously doubt they'd go for it.
They also like my guess is that the results of the players in the first chapter is that Druma is in on the deal, and they are probably getting paid not just by Keonan, but by Morthun and the Knights of Lastwall and Ustalav to supply weapons and armor to all the other nations.
mhm.
So throwing their mercenaries into the enemy camp is probably be no bueno from a kind of a political standpoint.
Oh
So
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
not totally sure that the Black Jackets would be because they're weird. They are mercenaries, but they also act as the Roman military. So they kind of
Yeah, they're almost like on an exclusive contract with Druma. Like they'll only take jobs that Druma approves, right?
Yes,
yeah
yes.
yeah
And Druma is very much an ally of Keonan at this point.
Well, in that case, you're probably not going to get them unless you get like some deserters or something.
Well, I still like the idea, and I learned something new. I didn't even know about the black jackets. I remember watching videos of Keonan, but that never stuck out to not Keonan, Druma, but that never stuck out to me.
yeah they're super cool. I the if I were a PC a in this particular game, in this Spore War game, I think what I'd probably run is a Black Jacket mercenary, just because there's Druman representation at the council, and I
Hmm.
just like the idea of someone that's in it just for the money.
I like that too. Yeah. I also liked your last wall deserter idea from the first time we talked. That was also a good concept where it just says like, well, screw it. Tarbathon needs to wait. This needs to happen now.
Yeah, this adventure, like there's a lot of cool character concepts. I also think that the this is a bit of a segue here, but whatever.
Oh
The
no, go
the
ahead. Go ahead.
blackjack concept is much more fun if there's another player in your group that's playing like a calistocrat, and
Mm-hmm.
then you're like their sworn bodyguard, right? That
Oh.
creates some good connective tissue between the characters, and you've got a very specific purpose, which is to keep the other guy alive. I think that'd be a
Mm-hmm.
really fun character.
Yeah, yeah, I like that. I like that. I like when PCs build off of things like that and work with the DM. That it not only encourages me to do a better job as the DM, it's also a lot of fun to play off like that.
Totally. Yeah, I'm always really happy when my players have got existing backstory. Especially the other thing is this is a level 11. This starts at level 11, right? So these are all heroes that have some kind of like real history to them
Yeah,
when they enter this. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I'm bringing mine over from Wardens of Wildwood. It's going to be a little finagling, but it's going to fit in perfectly. Now, Hercule says mercenaries in the River Kingdoms might qualify for something like that. Do you think they would work for Tree Raiser?
I think that I mean, possibly, yes. Mercenaries in the River Kingdoms. I think also you probably have disillusioned Galtish mercenaries that potentially, but I think really like if you look at someone like Tree Razor, I don't know how well funded Tree Razor is. I can't imagine he's super well funded. He
Oh,
lives
he's
in a
got,
swamp.
but he's still all
um,
the elf stuff. He has all their
oh yeah, he's
banks.
still all the else stuff. Okay,
Yeah,
that's where he's getting his money. Okay,
he's got the bank
well,
account information.
got it. Okay, okay. Well, I still think that he's probably going to like weird demon cults that live. He's probably going to the Darklands, and he's going to like places that don't, they're not like they don't have national alliances, right?
Oh
It
yeah,
feels
yeah.
like there's no end of weird cults that live just under the surface, right?
Well, that's another thing. Oh, go ahead, sir.
I was just gonna say the only other thing I could maybe think of in the region would be like orcs that are abandoning Belkzen because they don't want to deal with all of Ardax's like cultural changes.
Ooh, good
Yeah.
one.
They
Good
might
one.
it's a little farther away, but they could wander in kind of that direction. And if nothing else, like, hey, we need to get out of the Gravelands. We're gonna die. Oh, he'll offer us money. That works.
I like that. So, what if I told you that the wizard, in particular, Queen Talandia, wanted us to find was called Aravashino? Does that name ring any bell whatsoever?
I think it might.
Okay. Now, he's a Rift Warden. Are you familiar with Rift Wardens?
You're really stretching my lore knowledge here. You're gonna have to tell
Yeah.
me. Don't
Okay.
remember.
That's fine. That's what I'm here for, sir. I wanna see like how much we actually know, because I know my players won't know if you don't know. So, a Rift Warden is someone who studies the outer planes and whatnot, places like Jaharlu and the other places that demons come from, and basically keeping those doors closed. And one of the documents that he has on him is actually called What Doors We Open, which is a culmination of all his spells and research. But this is not the first time we have heard this man's name. Do you remember Wrath of the Righteous? Perhaps you've played a video game by Owlcat?
Yeah, I'm trying to, I know the name is familiar. It's just I'm still spacing.
How about this? In the prologue, do you remember looting his corpse? Because that's where he is.
That's funny.
Yep. I did my legwork
okay.
with this lore.
Wow. Okay. So
Obviously,
he
this is
dies in
not where
Wrath
he
of- Wrath
is.
of Legend.
Yeah. Obviously, it's not where he is.
That's really funny.
But he's
Maybe that's where I recognize the name. I don't know.
Maybe. So he's been in the Tanglebriar. Let's go to the map together, because this is a very nice map. Putrid in the Vial. The Elkhaven Lodge runes. We have an altar that was dedicated to Erastil, that where this man was sacrificed on, his body was split, the altar corrupted, and his soul broken into 3 pieces by someone called the Spore Queen. Now, the Spore Queen is the big boss of the whole second module, the second book. Do you happen to remember a succubus that tried to trick the elves back in Second Darkness? I know this is really reaching. I had to read a lot of Second Darkness in order to understand this. Oh, good.
I remember the succubus that yeah, I've played through Second Darkness that tries to deceive the player. Are we getting a Second Darkness callback? You have no idea how excited that makes me. I thought that was completely eradicated from the lore, and that none of that ever happened. So yes,
we thought
the succubus is back.
Yep. We thought so
I'm
too,
here
but
for it.
she was given a second chance by Tree Raiser. I didn't know he gave second chances.
Yeah, so basically, that they're. I'm going to give a quick high level, like what the heck's going on in Second Darkness.
Oh,
In
please,
Kyonin.
because my players will have no clue.
So basically, at a certain point in Second Darkness, you come through one of the Ayudara, one of the Elven Way gates. You pop up in Kyonin. You meet with the elves. You find out that a group called the Winter Council has been secretly manipulating elven affairs from behind the scenes for a really long time. And they have like a fortress in the Tanglebriar that they've secured with these wards to protect it from the demons.
Yeah.
But then, because of some internal conflict, one of the Winter Council guys escapes, and the wards start to fail, and demons start to overrun it. And so, by the time you show up, you have to deal with a bunch of demons, a bunch of tree raisers guys, including this succubus that poses as an elf in distress.
Okay, okay. So, demons are notorious for outright deceiving and whatnot. Uh, how is it she got found out? I mean, like, this was the perfect plan, right?
I guess the answer is it depends on what happened in your particular iteration of that adventure, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Could
And
it have
it
something to
theoretically,
do with Telendia?
maybe I don't know. Is that what this adventure reveals? I mean, ultimately, if you've got a play group that played through Second Darkness, and then this character recurs,
Mm-hmm.
then whatever happened in your game is the canon version of events, right? For your particular play group, I would say.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know if this, yeah, I don't know if this particular adventure makes it explicit what happened to her, but like, there's
Oh, she
so many
died.
characters in Second Darkness that could recur. Oh, she died.
Oh, yeah. Queen
Oh, I
Telendia.
understand. She died, and then what? Does she get resurrected?
Yeah, she basically got turned into a spore queen by Tree Razor because Queen Telandia saw through what was happening, broke her spine in half, and sent her back to Tree Razor as like this broken husk of a corpse, and it's just like,
Oh,
no.
nice.
Yeah, she takes absolutely no shit when it comes to her people.
Spine breaking Queen Talandia. All
Yeah.
right, nice.
Protective spine breaking level 17 wizard abjurationist Queen Telandia. Now, Iron and Phil, are either of you familiar with the events of Second Darkness?
I am
Not
not.
No, what I know about Second Darkness is what I researched on the Cipher Gate for the 12 days. I have the full set, I've just never read it.
Ah, that is unfortunately the situation I was in. I had them, but I did not read them. And now that I have, it feels like this is a continuation, a direct continuation of one of those modules, which may be a good thing for some people.
Yeah, that's fun. That's cool. I like it. Unexpected.
So, she's back. And not only is she back, she has this nefarious plan that will transform the Witch Bowl. We're all familiar with what the Witch Bowl is. It's the mobile fortress of Tree Razor, right?
Yep.
Yep. Big
Okay.
tree in the.
Uh-huh.
So, this guy that she just killed and broke his soul into 3 pieces is the key to manipulating the Iodara and then transforming his power as a Rift Warden into somehow making the Witch Bowl able to teleport at will, which she intends to take directly to the Iodara and fight with against the Queen again as revenge, taking Tree Razor directly there. Not even moving his army, but everyone's going to get loaded on to the Witch Bowl, similar to Descent into Avernus with, I think it was the Archangel or the Fallen Angels, kind of like flying fortress thing, and just
Mm-hmm.
demon dropship.
I'm thinking the Dracula Castle from Castlevania.
Absolutely, yes, that is exactly right, yes. So, players are not aware of that at this point, but they know a Rift Warden has gone missing. They find his zombie here, which is really unnerving. And better than that, when we rescue a couple of these rangers who are stranded here, trying to fight for their lives, we start to see a different flavor of demon. Because the demons under Tree Razor's purview kind of have like this cosmetic alteration, this kind of like different physical appearance, and many of them are fungal themed. And there are a couple of them in particular that are very, very appealing. And I'll
Oh
show
yeah,
a
that
few.
looks very cool. Yeah.
And we have the big boss here as well.
Oh, that is sick.
Yeah, a lot of them look really, really good. Are you familiar with an anime called Kaiju Number 9?
I know of it. I haven't seen it.
Okay. So, there's this mushroom guy who's the mastermind bad guy kaiju of Kaiju Number 9, and he looks exactly like the Spore Scouts. It's almost identical with the character design, and I really love that.
This is really cool art. Yeah, there's some great art here.
This is going to be such a great follow-up to Wardens of Wildwood for your
Oh,
players
yes.
because it takes the like decaying nature theme and just really like cranks it up with a little eldritch horror to give it a good continuation feel, but it's gonna be distinctly different.
Yes, yes, I agree with that profusely. Now, I wanted to ask, wasn't your wife playing in your Wardens of Wildwood game? How's that going?
We haven't started yet. My wife and my brother are going to play. We are definitely leaning comedy on this one.
Oh, thank
She
God.
is,
Good.
yeah. She's
Good
gonna
choice.
play a Fey touched centaur who is part unicorn instead of part horse, and
Oh.
he is playing an awakened animal pony who has the cavalier archetype and rides a much larger horse. So,
Alright.
like I said, leaning very hard into absurdity for this one.
I apologize when I laughed all the flip. But that is hilarious. Yeah, we have an awakened crab in ours.
I love it.
He made the defenders of the island of Erinway crit fail on chain lightning, and he destroyed 3 of the most ancient creatures in the world of Galarian.
No.
So yeah, Tree Razor has all these really neat looking demonic cohorts. Oh, excuse me. I'm very sorry about that. And at this point, the players realize that not only is there like a nefarious plan afoot, but they managed to retrieve all the research that this guy was working on. They have his corpse of the zombie they killed, like the CR1 zombie that was just basically made to fuck with them. And they bring the remains back along with the research. And at this point, Queen Delandia says, like, we can't resurrect him. Something's wrong. But we need him back. His soul must be, like captured somewhere else. And at the end of the chapter, we get our second war interlude.
Before we get to the war interlude, quick, I just wanted to
oh yes,
just briefly comment on I appreciate that we're doing the elf story, but we still managed to get an excursion into another deity associated with forestry's territory, because I just would have expected the easy answer for this would have been to just make it a temple of Cetaphis, set it in or around Kyonin, no problem.
yeah.
But I appreciate the willingness to say, nope, we're going to go to our deity of core 20. As long if you're more familiar with the core 20, great. Your players will have a, it's a forest campaign. If you're new players, you probably just picked Erastil. So here's a good opportunity for you to see a temple to your god. But if you didn't do that, if you're more familiar with the lore and played a Cetaphesian ranger or something, this is a good opportunity to kind of highlight the differences between the faiths. So even though they're doing a core 20 deity that a lot of some people might have seen before, I still think there's a lot of opportunity for good character interaction here.
Oh, absolutely. And there's nothing saying that you can't change whose altar it is too as well. I mean, you don't have
absolutely,
to have
yeah.
No, definitely great suggestion. So
I've also been while we've been chatting. So I looked up Aravathnio, the elven wizard. So he does appear in Wrath of the Righteous, and he is one of the characters. There's like a NPC gallery that includes a bunch of characters that you can draw on for the kind of campaign portion, and
Hmm.
he's one of the characters. So he joined the Crusades essentially to learn demon fighting techniques, because his whole deal is he wants to go and kill Tree Razor, and then he came back to Keonan and brought some of that expertise back with him. So I guess at some point he ran afoul of Tree Razor and got himself killed. But that's cool. I like it anytime that Pathfinder does this thing where they use old characters, whether they're big characters or minor characters, that maybe some of your players have a relationship with in the past, maybe not. But I think that's really cool.
Well, that's actually a perfect segue, because guess what? It's time for the Wrath of Zagulglugglug. And this dragon happens to be a rival of the Queen of Thorns, and the Queen of Thorns is another dragon with a highly unpronounceable name. And basically, at about chapter 3, yeah, they come to a head, and it depends whether you recruit one that you actually get help with the other. And this is your second opportunity to spend a triumph point. And thankfully, because of the handy sheet I made, let's see here. Ah, yes, domestic dragon terrorism attacks happen throughout the campaign unless you spend a triumph point here.
So the triumph point, let me just make sure I understand. So the triumph point, basically you spend it and then you recruit the other dragon, and therefore, and if you don't spend the triumph point, you don't recruit. So there's, I guess, um, when you accrue the triumph points, you just accrue them for doing like whatever stuff you would normally do, right? There's no, is there like an RP dimension to like recruiting the dragon?
There is, and it is
Or
in book 3. Excuse me, not
Okay.
book 3, chapter 3, yes. So not only would you have to spend triumph points to directly recruit the dragon, but how well you can recruit them and how many triumph points you have to spend is based on the effort of RP that you bring forward to the Queen of Thorns.
Cool.
So at this point, and I believe you were the one who said it in your original elf video that there are a lot of Tolkien references. This one gives us a reference to The Hobbit, where we learn about a dragon's old wound that never healed properly. That is one of their weak points on their wing. I believe that's a direct reference to Bard.
Yeah, that sounds like it. Yeah.
Yeah, almost certainly.
So, are we all on the same page, gentlemen? Man's soul was taken. Something very bad is afoot. Queen Talandia is seeking that the PCs go further into the Tanglebriar to not only complete a host of missions, but to also find out information on what exactly is happening with this Spore Queen. Oh, Ryan makes the remark that it's dragon romance time. Not yet, not yet. Chapter 3. You'll get your chance.
Sounds good.
I closed it by accident.
Tanglebriar we go.
Ah, yes, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to try to find a missing spy. You like edge points and awareness points, don't you?
Sure.
So, what's the thing that comes to mind when you do this kind of subsystem? Like Mission Impossible, Ocean's 11?
It's
Because
probably something more almost more video gamey for me. I think I'm probably picturing something like XCOM. but like fantasy edition, where you this might be a too specific reference, but you're like hiding behind like stones, trying to creep up on some bad guys.
Okay, okay. Iron Phil, how about you guys?
Yeah, for the awareness one, for me, I mean, this is just calling back to like my formative video games. For me, always goes back to Far Cry 3 and like creeping around the fortresses on the island in the underbrush.
Okay. I remember Far Cry. I remember sliding down until that point where the road diverged and I just stayed in the middle and I stayed in the sliding animation.
I don't know. My brain just keeps going back to like Assassin's Creed or Thief.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
What if I told you one of the most popular and memorable people to have ever NPC'd in any of these adventure paths, who not only helped someone become Jade Regent, decided that it was time that she and her cadre of elves were going to help
yes.
you in
There
this
she is.
mission.
I was waiting for this.
Yeah, Rilu and no, Shalilu and Dasana. That's right. This lady. She's back.
Yeah.
I'm really glad we got new art for her. I've always liked the character. I've never loved the art that we've had. This is awesome.
Yeah.
Well, my
Yeah.
question is, why didn't she take the job from the Jade Regent? She could have been like this all-powerful semi-ruler alongside from all the work she did in that campaign, and then she just goes back to being an Elven Ranger?
I don't know. Maybe one of you guys knows this. Maybe not. This always Shalilu always felt to me like this is like just one of the Paizo guys, like actual PC.
Oh, yeah, we've
who like
talked about that.
who acts like an actual PC does, where it's like, well, there's no retiring. You're just gonna adventure forever, right?
Yeah. It's really weird too, because she seems like she's oh well, I have to stay humble for the sake of getting more screen time. We've had a lot of characters in adventure paths where we just go like, is this the devs PC? Is this their Mary Sue? They have a lot of artwork done about them. Is this their excuse for getting commissions?
I also think, I talked about this in the when we talked about the first chapter and how like I go heavy on modifying the APs when I run them, probably more so than most.
Oh yes.
And this is like, for me, I see it something like this, and I think this is, you're trying to evoke a feeling, in my opinion, if you put a character like Shalelu in there, which is like, this is a character that players have run into before. So if Shalelu doesn't have the right resonance for your group, then you could potentially swap this character for a different character that does have that resonance. So if you haven't run Jade Regent, or you haven't run, I think she pops up in Rise of the Rune Lords as well, because she's in and
Yes, she
around
does.
Sandgate.
She saved me from that Hound of Tyndalos.
So like, there's good odds that Shalelu is someone that'll work for you. But if you've been like playing, I don't know, Curse of the Crimson Throne or some other games, you can
Yeah.
swap this character out for someone else that serves a very similar function, right?
I would actually leave her in, because one, she's an elf, and two, her skill set really befits what we need. Because a lot of my players in this group are brutes. They like to rush in and go like, okay, let's kill everything. That's the port where Shalelu would be like, guys, come on. We can't do that. If we could have done that, we would have done that centuries ago. It's not a matter of beating down Tree Razor's door and burning everything to the ground. It's a matter of getting what we need and being able to win this war.
Yeah, they have. There's also they have tried to burn down parts of that ended really badly. There's a whole section of the Tanglebriar which is like perpetually burned because elves at one point tried to burn it down, and it like did some weird stuff and fused with the tree razor's magic, and now there's like this perpetually burnt chunk of the swamp.
I'm glad you brought that up because guess what? Tree Razor is very much a deity of nature, and he has the healing font, believe it or not.
Yeah, I remember seeing that. He corrupts, but he can also heal if he wants to.
Yeah, that's the part that really got me. It's just like, what if he's just misunderstood?
He's not.
Okay.
Gonna say, I think it's like Lamash too. She can heal too, but she's not misunderstood.
Oh, well, that's Lamashu. We know that evil. All right. So I think I'd like to take you to the map just to get an idea of what's happening here. So we're over here with Keonan and everything. And we have the Tanglebriar. But the thing that gets me is I had to ask about one of the rivers because one of the rivers becomes ultimately very important, and I think Mythkeeper named the river for us because that river is about to become pudding.
Yeah, I just picked a name. That is not canon.
It's better than just calling it the River of Thorns, which is what I was going to call it.
That's so weird that they haven't named the river that is actually relevant. That's funny.
Yeah, this
So the river that goes from River Spire is the Kionin River, and the one that goes from Ayadara is the spacing on it. Oh wait, which river? Is it this river? The one that goes from Shevaroth?
Yeah, I think it's this one from the description that the War Interlude gave me. That's why I was so confused when I asked.
This one does have a name. This one does have a name. Hold on.
No sweat.
Sorry, I'm gonna look something
No,
up here.
that's quite all right. And while you look that something up, we're going to talk about our next couple of missions because there are a couple things that we're going to run into here within the Tanglebriar. The first of which is a curse. Oh, go ahead.
This is called the Lesser Endowar. So the one that I thought you were referring to was the one to the left of this, which comes up from, which ends in Lasinavel, essentially, right? The one that meets the Kionin River at Lasinavel, that one is unnamed. But
Okay.
this one is the Lesser Endawar. So the greater Endawar, I guess, emerges from either I think probably the Moonpool Causeway, and then wraps around and goes by Ayadara, and then this other tributary, which is thinner and smaller and meets with the main Endawar, is called the Lesser Endawar.
It's about to be pudding.
That sounds good.
So, is anyone here familiar with the curse called Briar Blight and the divine disease called Tangle Rot? We talked about Tangle Rot a little bit the last time, but Briar Blight is completely new to me.
I'm not familiar with the diseases now.
Okay, so this is how Briar Blight works. You entomb someone in a blighted tree for a week. I'm not sure why it is this specific, but this is what the curse does. And after about a year of being exposed to it, you gain levels of power that transform you that are more difficult to remove. I think this is what has happened to many of the demons here and why they've become fungal flavored. Basically, under Tree Razor's influence, that more and more over time, they've just begun getting similar fungal traits from his divine influence.
That's really cool. I'm glad they included the encasement in a tree. That adds a lot of flavor to what could have very easily just been like, yeah, put them in a circle.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So we also have the disease. And this is really bad because I thought the Cythropian disease in Wardens of Wildwood was bad, where it just kind of mind controls you and makes you attack things wildly. You begin sprouting filaments around stage 3, and every time you remove the filaments, they grow back. And it's about yeah, you go through several more stages of stupefaction, being drained, and the filaments begin to continuing wrapping around your limbs, hindering mobility, until death happens, the body splits open, and then a cloud of spores that can inflict tangle rot again to other creatures just lasts there for a couple hours. And these become basically hazards that you encounter within the Tanglebriar. And there's one more thing to talk about. Are you familiar with creatures called blights?
Yeah, vaguely.
Okay. So here we're given a swamp blight. Let me see if I can pull that up. And these things are horrifying. No. Well, they must not made a token for him. Did they fix the art handouts? No, they did not. Darn it. I will go to the adventure toolbox and I will find it. There it is. They can be very, very ancient creatures. What they do is they have specific rituals of corruption for themselves. Like they can take over a corrupted region or they can take over an uncorrupted region. And it kind of varies on what kind of blight that they are. And this is the way that Tree Razor affects a lot of change as well, is that these living blights claim a region like the swamp and begin to affect the fae, the animals, and the other things of the natural world here. Like, not everything is directly because Tree Razor just happens to be here. These are sort of independent, intelligent creatures that want to warp nature to their own means. And this one particularly loves creating undead within the swamp and using it for its own purposes. All of the undead being under its command and whatnot. So there's a lot of scary things in the Tanglebriar.
Yeah, I particularly like the way that that like briar sickness that you described is very clearly drawing from like the zombie fungus that infects ants and how it like
Yeah.
propagates itself.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
really nice to see
Oh,
in the worst way possible.
yeah. Another thing to note is if you're a fungal leshy, or a fungus creature, or a plant creature, excuse me, you can eat a lot of the fungus in the Tanglebriar, like Deathstalks and whatnot, and you think it tastes yummy. It doesn't corrupt you. So you can have a little leshy druid or a little leshy character, and they'll be completely unaffected by all this, wondering why all their friends are dying.
Kind of a cool little lore touch there.
Yeah, well, the thing was, it's just nice to actually have a touch like that, because everything here feels like it's beyond like saving, but then you do something like that and you go like, oh well, it isn't that bad.
So
Yeah,
I
it
guess
makes
the
it makes it
suggestion there is that it's natural fungus, right? Like it is a corruption of the forest, but it is
Oh yeah.
also a version of nature as well.
Yes.
Yeah, it makes it feel like something could actually belong here.
All right. So before we go further into the Tanglebriar, wouldn't it be great if we had all of Keonan's sacred treasures to help us? Like Fiendbreaker that we've heard so much about? And the queen basically tells you the time is right. Get the candy. So
If you're not going to use it now, when are you going to use it?
Yeah, and in book 3, these might become legendary items depending on if you have enough triumph points for the gods to power them up. Most of the items fit very well. I was thinking Fiendbreaker was going to be a monk weapon. It's actually a wizard staff, or it looks like a divine staff.
Yeah, the art for it looks very wizardy.
I was not expecting Slither Maw's Bane, which is basically an item of Calistria that person gets infected not with Slithermaw's poison, but basically with wasp poison. All right, so we have the legendary, we have the the unique items at this point. They're still just unique. We have Shalelu. Oh, this is fantastic. At this point, there's no way we could fail. Oh, before I go too far in, you are familiar with the standard every AP animated forge, animated oven, and marsh giant fights that tend to pop up? Well, there is a fungal flavor. These fights in APs tend to get used more and more. So
this might have to be my new standard art for marsh giants. This looks way cooler than the normal one.
Oh, you like
Sure.
the little epaulets of mushrooms and stuff?
Yeah, and the like weird, it almost looks like coral growth forming the mohawk there. Like, I know it's not, it's another kind of fungus, but
Yeah.
yeah, very cool.
It definitely has more personality than the other ones I've seen, where they just kind of have like the hook.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so one of the things you have to do is establish base camp, and once you establish base camp, you can't leave. The only way for you to get supplies is to get these little supply drops where followers of Calistria will ride wasps and drop off supplies for you. And those are going to cost triumph points. And first one's free. So I hope you brought plenty of foods.
This sounds like something they wrote while they were thinking of like a Vietnam War movie. That's kind of the vibe. Not to make it too serious, but that's kind of the vibe I'm getting.
I was thinking Cold War, but yeah, it's very similar threads. Oh, excuse me. So, at this point, we've actually made it to Riverspire. This is where the missing spy was. And depending on your choice for the triumph point, that's going to affect some things.
Well, that's cool. I like that. So essentially, if you spent the triumph point earlier, Riverspire survives and it's a different environment than if you had not spent the triumph point. Is that right?
Well, it is going to be the same environment. However, the people from Riverspire will have survived, and you would have been able to get some resources from it in Chapter 1. Now that it is Chapter 2, unfortunately, it is sacked, but the triumph point saves the people.
Oh, okay. So I thought that they might have done something where it's like a sort of the environment is conditional based on the no.
I
It's just are the people alive or not? But this river spire is still destroyed. Okay, got it.
Well, not destroyed, just taken over by Tree Razor. I like that idea better though. That's exactly where I was coming from. I kept going back and forth from spending the war interlude with the triumph point, going like it's not going to be any different. What's the point of spending a point?
Yeah, I feel like you if you're gonna use a sub mechanic like that, it 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 it's cool if then it feels like it's actually altering the world and that the adventure actually takes a different course depending on whether you spent it or not, as opposed to it just like being like a story element that the GM recaps for the players after the fact.
Yeah, that's how a lot of the war interludes are. That's one of the problems that I have with them.
I wonder if you pre-read the war interludes, if you can kind of like I understand why the environment isn't different, especially when they're like drawing actual maps. Like you basically double your resource allocation to any one map if it has to be conditional.
Mhm.
But but at the same time, I wonder if you can kind of cheat it a little bit as a GM by, like you were saying, Mythkeeper, gently coaxing your players to have backgrounds that maybe put NPCs in Riverspire or something
Oh
like that.
yes.
Like I haven't read all the war interludes yet, but like it seems like you can kind of cheat your way into sort of artificially created stakes.
Yeah, 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 absolutely.
I do like that idea. So there are obstacles for you to overcome, and hopefully your old friend Shalelu will help. You have to rescue the spy in particular who has all this information that the queen needs, and you have to avoid getting up to a certain threshold of awareness points. If you don't do that, demonic reinforcements come in. If you manage to get back to Keonan in time, you could even set up some propaganda for the demons to find. You know, falsify, disinformation, misinformation, whatever you want to call it. I'm not sure why the demons would believe something like that, but propaganda affects both sides, I guess.
Razor's not so great, pass it around.
Well, that's just it. I mean, what do you say in terms of propaganda? It's just like, oh, Tree Razor's father is coming back. He's old news. I kept thinking his father was going to reassert himself somehow, especially with all those demons he took from him.
It's
If you
still
are
something
running
like
this
that.
as a sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. I was going to say that could still happen in book 3 that Sith Facade gets involved.
Oh, go ahead,
What I
Phil.
was thinking was if you've run this as a previous adventure, one way you could or if you've run something leading into this, I should say, one way you could do propaganda is like specific to your heroes. Like, do you guys know who you're fighting right now? Like, you know, not only are you taking on like the elves of Kyonan, but like you've got us to deal with, and we got out of like we just bested you in this location. Um,
Yeah.
So those little posters of Obey with like the PC's images instead of Tree Razor.
maybe more like flee on sight.
Oh God. So basically, as you complete these small missions and things get back and forth to the Queen, more war interludes start to occur. And the direction of the war really, really changes because at one point, the difference of a triumph point is whether or not Tree Razor's army marches in feet compared to miles. And it's just like that's kind of a big deal.
Whoa.
I mean, I'm not sure why that one triumph point more than the others would affect his war campaign, but let's see here. Oh no, the next one is civil unrest. The hippies, the hippie politicians in Keonan basically go like, the queen hasn't been doing her job, and if you want her to be respected, you have to spend a triumph point, and for some reason that affects Tree Razor's forces advancing in feet rather than miles, because the distraction that the civil unrest causes makes everyone in the nation of Keonan just outright distracted.
That one definitely seems extreme.
Yeah, some triumph points, when you spend them, are definitely not equal to others in terms of rewards or in terms of what they affect in the war. There's even a mission that affects a corrupted grove of mushrooms, and you're basically trying to cure the briar blight, the tangle rotter infestation, which is the one we saw in the previous book. That's the one that made those rot walkers that look like the Last of Us mushrooms.
That's the corruption spreads
Yes.
one. Yeah.
Milvabrecht, I kind of wanted to talk about for a little bit. It's not an Elven word. It's a Russian word and a German word joined together. But the mission itself is really, really good, because the queen suspects that the person that basically gave up this place is an elven traitor. He's actually possessed by a demon. How many people are familiar with possession?
Yes, loosely with possession.
I only know of it from the few times it was attempted by someone and it did not go well for them.
Oh, not Xeris's possession with the divine possession. No, we're talking about demonic possession.
Oh, then no.
All right. So let's take a look. There's certain types of demons that like to possess people, and they can have some very specific wants. I think that is. Some of them specialize just in elves. Like, they prefer elves as their host. And they are called Invidiac, envy demons.
Oh yeah, these guys, little gaseous dudes.
Yeah, they talked about this at I think it was one of the Gen Con presentations last year, or maybe I'm thinking of a different conference, but they talked about this when they were highlighting their new demons.
This one in particular is capable of lengthier possessions, and he basically took over an elven wizard, but the elven wizard is fighting back. Like, he won't do certain things until he's completely under the control. So basically, in order to get him to cooperate, he made the wizard start writing things down that he knew because he wouldn't tell him. And he goes about it in roundabout ways in order to get the information that he needs for Tree Razor. At this point, he's fully under the control. And as the players come in and try to rescue him, he tries to play off the whole, like, oh no, that'll definitely come before you with the queen and whatnot. Just get rid of these demons. Everything's fine. And then betray the party at the first opportunity.
So the possessed elven wizard presents initially as like an ally of the party.
Oh yes. Let me see if
Yeah.
I can get his artwork here, because he's got some very nice artwork. There we go. He definitely has nothing wrong going on with those bloodshot eyes, right?
Honestly, it's hard to tell with elves because they all have like, they all have monocolored eyes or whatever, big irises or whatever they're said to have. What's this guy's name? This character?
He is called Vivix. Vixavix. I think I'm saying that correct.
The demon. Yeah.
Vixavax. Vixavax. Oh, the demon.
No, that is the demon.
Okay.
Yeah, I was gonna say that doesn't sound like a very elvish name for this character.
No, the elvish one is Iravalin Morgathai.
Yes.
Oh, so this guy's from Riverspire.
Yes.
Because the Morgathai family are like if I remember correctly, they're the guys that run Riverspire.
He was the one who betrayed Riverspire to Tanglebriar. He is the reason why Riverspire was sacked.
Oh, interesting.
And the queen wants him to find out why he did it.
The other, sorry, just this is a weird aside. You guys know the iconic elven alchemist.
No,
Damiel.
Yeah, Damiel. Damiel is also a Morgathai. There's a dozen Morgathais in this game, but so the Morgathai clan owns Riverspire, and there's and I think somewhere in the lore, there's like a really ancient, venerable Morgathai lord that is still alive. That was the original sort of patriarch of the family. That's like thousands of years old, and it's sort of like elves are normally long lived, but he's like even more long lived. I don't suppose that, but it's interesting that Riverspire gets kind of destroyed here because it was one of the few places in Kyonin that I think had a little bit of robust lore kind of going into it. So this guy is somehow part of that family. Anyway, it's not really him, right? Because he's possessed. He's possessed by a demon. So
correct.
He's not really the greatest family.
So even if you end up killing him, you can just resurrect him later. And that happens to be the fate of a lot of people in this campaign, especially if at the end of this chapter, assassins can just mysteriously pop up and start randomly killing any NPC you've met so far, except the queen. And similar to that elven wizard, their souls will be brought to Deathstalk Tower and basically imprisoned. And you will not get them back until Chapter 3 concludes. So if you have a delegate or someone else that is a load-bearing NPC, there's a chance that you could lose them.
It's cool.
Very, very high stakes. And once he's dealt with, that's Chapter 3. I mean, that's on to Chapter 3, excuse me. And we finally get to the namesake, Deathstalk Tower.
Before we move on to chapter 3, what is the story with? I apologize. I should have read through this AP before we had this discussion. What's the story with Maluka? He's there for some reason. What's why does it have such a strange name? I guess.
Well, I could answer that question first. Maluvabrecht. Maluva is Russian for to fondle or caress. Brecht is a German word which refers to a German playwright and propaganda man who originally worked within Nazi Germany and then fled to communist Russia. Part of the things.
Okay. In lore though, what's the name of this place?
So this is the place where basically the Spore Queen has requested of Vixavax, basically get all the information you can out of this elven man. And the demon basically goes, I've been benched. and he doesn't like that. So he gets the elven man to write down absolutely everything he can about the information that she needs. But at the same time, he's not receiving any other orders at this point, and he's starting to get frustrated. So basically, she has condemned him to this location to stay put.
Okay. So is it like a cave or something? What's the
Oh,
oh,
let me show you the it's actually ruins.
oh, it's an old ruin. Okay, got it.
Here we go. Sorry about that. And we have new demon types here as well.
Yeah, so reading through the book right now, Meluvabrecht was a laboratory, sort of like an offshoot of a laboratory system that was used before Earthfall. That was kind of running in parallel, or the researchers were kind of running in parallel to the Rift Warden. So this was like a offshoot of a research facility.
I thought
Cool.
Earthfall didn't affect Keonan as bad as it did the other places, though. Why is it a wreck?
No, the elves had abandoned it because of Earthfall, and then it just kind of fell apart. Because the elves during Earthfall just like they bounced. They said, "Oh no, we're not dealing with that," and they left for Castrovel. And then,
Yeah.
I mean, arguably that was the right choice. I mean, the Rune Lords failed miserably. So, so they basically got out, leaving all of their stuff to fall to ruin, and then they came back. I forget. It's like within the last millennia or two, they came back to Golarion. So there's like this huge, like 8,000 year period where there's no Sovirian elves on Golarion. There's the elves of Jinnen and the elves of Garund and the Cavern elves, but and probably a few others. But like all the north central Avestan elves, with the exception of the ones that ran to the Eye of the World, or the Crown of the World, they just left.
So it's not a fact that it was destroyed in Earthfall. It's just a matter of no one was here to maintain it.
Well, it
That
could have been
appears to be the case, but I mean, Earthfall probably
also,
didn't help.
there was a period before the elves came back. So there's a period of time where the Taldan Empire around the Second Army and then in the Third Army basically looted and ransacked a bunch of elven ruins. And I think in the old Inner Sea World Guide, it talks about the fact that the elves. So when the elves returned, they pushed out all the Taldans and they sort of defined their current borders. And also, Keonan used to be bigger than it is today, right? So like Keonan, there's a gate under the Borewood in Gult, for example, because Keonan essentially stretched, or the central heartland sort of stretched all the way out there, and they invaded Seven Arches, and they were pushed back by the Oak Stewards, and then they invaded Himbria, and they actually took Himbria, and there's like a whole separate elven kingdom that's like part of the River Kingdoms that's described in the River Kingdoms book. But uh, essentially, the Taldans, that when they found the old elven ruins, they liked their like sculptures and stuff, and so they would they would dismantle it and repurpose it and use that stonework elsewhere. And the elves are not always best pleased about the way that their stuff got treated. So a lot of the elves that came back to Keonan would find that a lot of their old artifacts had found their way across Golarion, and well, some elves want to like reclaim that and bring it back to Keonan.
Ah, yes, but
So
they're
it
in
could be,
museums, right?
of course. No, they're definitely in private collections.
All right, so he betrayed his family, came here at the Spore Queen's discretion, is trying to get information out of the wizard, but is basically given something beyond the scope of the adventure from what I had seen, that his task might not be possible. It doesn't feel like he's actually contributing to the Spore Queen's plan. She put him out of the way. That's the sense I got.
Okay, so chapter concludes basically with you either the heroes either doing some kind of exorcism, or else this Mordecai guy dies.
Well, he can be resurrected later. That's pretty much the opinion of my players. I remember in Strength of Thousands, they tended to do that too. They still haven't resurrected Koride yet.
When I was playing Rise of the Rune Lords for the first time, my wife, who was GMing for me, took my character's NPC girlfriend and held her hostage. And by this point in the game, I was so high level and I had enough castings of resurrection. I was like, it probably won't be that traumatic. You could just let her die. I'll bring her back. I was bluffing, but it was that was my bluff. It's like, I'll just bring her back, and then your death is going to be even worse. So what do you want to do?
Oh dear God. What kind of relationship is that? Where you just go like, well, you're gonna die anyway. But I'll bring you back.
I didn't say it was a healthy relationship. I just meant that's what he did. Again, he was bluffing.
I do think that in a world where resurrection is possible, you'd have a lot more people doing kind of the sacrifice play, right? Like, it's not that big of a deal if you have friends that can resurrect you.
It's definitely one of the things that we touch on in book 3. We're going to see some other things come back that you have heard reference before. Slithermaw is coming back.
Ooh.
Are you familiar with a type of undead called the Unrisen? They're not often used.
Doesn't ring a bell.
Heard of them, but I cannot for the life of me remember where.
Yeah, Iron and I had this same problem. They're from the Book of the Dead, the recent one.
That's it.
Yeah. So they have resurrection vulnerability when they actually die, and they only die under certain conditions because they have Rise Again, and they have this ability called Meant to Live that they can actually absorb positive healing energy. It's really weird. It's very complicated to kill them. But if you do it really is. It really is. If you do manage to kill them, they turn into bath salts that Pharasma doesn't like. That you can use in resurrection rituals that are kind of frowned upon. But Pharasma won't do anything bad to you. It's really weird.
That's awesome. I love the flavor. That is so cool.
So you just get the disappointed divine mom look?
Yes, exactly. While she's just sitting in the chair going like, I thought I taught you better. But yeah, you get to face Slithermaw inside of Deathstalk Tower. I think it was the elven hero that founded Greengold with his death. The only way he was able to kill this creature is with his own death.
Yeah, that's right. That's the green gold history, right? He kills Slithermaw and then founds the. Although it's interesting that because he founds the town, or they found the town where he defeated Slithermaw. So I guess the corpse has been moved. No, I'm wrong about that. Maybe I'm wrong about that.
Well, it definitely is his corpse. You need the corpse to make the Unrisen. I mean, did the elves do anything with it, or they just kind of left it there, or?
you'd assume that if it was like a big monster that they killed at some point, that they would like I don't know. I always assumed that if I lived in the Pathfinder universe, I would cremate everything. But if not that, then they probably would put some, magic on it to consecrate it so that it wouldn't become some evil undead beast. But I guess not.
See, you bring that up, and I'm sorry to do an aside, but in my Wardens of Wildwood game, that's exactly what happened with Rosadoya, because they burned everyone that those spores touched, and I still had to bring her back. Because that's what the
Yeah,
plot had.
it's funny. Like I think Nex is the only country that you read about where they're like they have a long-standing fight with Geb, so they cremate everybody, and you're like everybody would do this. Like if necromancy is just one of the wizard schools, everybody either you're using zombies as labor, or you're burning corpses. It's not one of you know what I mean.
Yeah. Yeah, Tarbafon basically has like all these ships of like 1,000 or more corpses coming to him every month. That's just free labor.
Yep, yep.
All right, so a lot of things come to a head in this part of the chapter. That green dragon, you're gonna fight her. She has an immense horde with lots and lots of goodies in it. You're gonna see the Spore Queen. We're gonna see Slithermaw. Don't the people in Tianza do lots of cremations too? I would think so. I'm not familiar with Tianza burial rituals and stuff, but I think Pharasma is over there. She has kind of a different look.
Yeah, Pharasma's everywhere. She's like the eldest AT in the universe.
All right, so the first part is going to be another war interlude, and then we get into the dungeons and stuff, because at this point, I think it was you, Mythkeeper, that brought up the moon pools. They're going to come into play too.
All the good Kyonin locations. Yeah, there's a dragon over in the moon pools. Is that the dragon that we're getting in this AP?
Yep. We're gonna get both dragons, the bad one and the good one. Apparently, they have a Fey army as well in the moon pools, which is really really neat. The Queen of
Yeah.
Thorns is the one that I think the AP is referencing, though. So let's see. Yes, more research, because we don't know who the Spore Queen really is, although we actually do. Yep, City of Thorns is the first one. Zuldavonox. Let me get her up here.
Oh, it's actually not. So my knowledge of uh, the Moonpool Causeways dates back to the first edition stuff. So there used to be a bronze dragon called, I think. Well, let me check my old notes. Echizarian, I think. Echizarian that was layered in the Moonpool Causeways, but that probably has gotten retconned because of all the dragon changes that happened with remaster. So like the green dragons now are the horn dragons, and I'm gonna do a video at some point about uh, the updated dragon lore and kind of my
Oh,
assumptions around how they map. You know, but I think both these dragons are gonna end up being green drag or horn dragons, right?
yeah, they're both being horned dragons. They did change the names. It's not that big of a change, but at the same time, I still think Green Dragon.
That's one of those things where it just takes a minute to get used to saying the right name. I think Horn Dragon is actually, I think, a great name for this dragon because they've got the big rhino horn. Um, some of the other dragons, like the Omen Dragon, is a bit harder to remember.
Yep, if you
If
spend
it's
a
considered
oh, go ahead.
No, no, I just was thinking about the new dragon names are not always like um, the colors
Intuitive?
are easy, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
they're not
colors are
intuitive.
intuitive. So you start off with City of Thorns and the Spore Flood. Spending a triumph point here, you can guarantee that you have your own dragon to help weaken, morale amongst the Tanglebriar and whatnot. Otherwise, she's going to turtle up and just avoid everything.
So is Zoldanavox the dragon that you recruit or the dragon that you fight?
Zoldanavox is the dragon you recruit. Zualalgog is the here we go.
Okay, so Zoldanavox is probably Echizarian. Oh, so that's great. That's cool.
Yeah, she's at the very top of the tower with her horde. Oh, we'll take a look at that in a moment.
I love how the scales are leaves. That's such a nice touch by the artist.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of the elven armor too, like how they did like the leather in some places. It's hard to imagine that they breathe caustic clouds. You think they'd be nicer to nature. So this is
It's
the
probably
part.
nice to get fire, right? If we think about it.
So this is the part where the river turns to pudding. Literally. The river transforms into a pudding-thick artery of fungal corruption. And this is where things become very, very complicated. Because from this point onward, if a PC spends a triumph point to resolve a war interlude and you don't spend a triumph point here, you get a DC flat check 5. On a failure, you spend an additional triumph point for any future war interludes. So it's becoming very, very desperate at this point if you don't start spending the TP. Because things start to become irreversible past this point, especially with the Moon Pool Siege, which will be at the end of this chapter, where basically you can lose the support of all the Fae from the Moon Pools in Book 3 for when Tanglebriar is directly fighting the Ayadara.
Maybe this is because I like to be soft on my players, but this is where I would have Queen Talandia pop in with a vision and be like, yo, this is the do or die moment. Not metagaming, but maybe spend a triumph point on this one.
Oh, it's just like, thank you, Queen Talandia. What's metagaming?
Ancient Elvish word, don't worry about it.
Okay. I do not question my queen. So let's take a look at the inside of Deathstalk Tower. You got the little brain thing over here with the spore stomach.
So is there any reason that you would hold on to your triumph points? Like
Yes.
if you've accrued a triumph point, why would you not just spend it every time a war interlude occurs?
So, James has said several times on the official forums that you are to stockpile these triumph points. And in Book 3, depending on how many you have left over, as opposed to how many you've spent, from the impression that he's given me, will say the state of Keoden and the Tanglebriar at the end of the war.
Okay, interesting.
Oh, so it's like what if it's like in Curtain Call, except you have to spend the production points partway through and kind of balance that, if I'm interpreting that correctly?
I'm a bit confused myself because I thought all the excess points were going to go into these legendary items for the gods to power up. It was my impression that the more triumph points that we spent, the better condition Keonin would be in. I think there's something in book 3 we don't understand yet, or that
Okay.
there's going to be a big thing that we spend them on.
Yeah, maybe they help you in the final encounter with Tree Razor.
Yeah, I've heard bad things happen to people in that tree raiser fight.
Already?
Oh no, just from James's group.
Oh yeah. He did 2 test groups. One did not kill Tree Razor, but they didn't have any of the bonuses. So, are you familiar with what Deathstalk Tower used to be? Is everyone aware that it used to be a temple of Calistria? Oh no.
Vaguely, yes.
So, this is the part where... Oh, go ahead.
No, go on. I was going to say it's not in Vrildara, right? It's a different temple of Calistria. There's lots of them scattered around Keonin.
I'm not sure what it was originally called. It could have been. So, this is the part where Calistria basically comes down and gives you wasps for various reasons. You're basically at that point where she realizes you need to win and this place could be reclaimed for her. So she gives you several different kinds of wasps that are all invisible except for you. And they can help in things such as deception or in doing things around the tower itself. So long as you are there with the mission of vengeance in your mind. And one of the things that you'll have to do as you investigate the towers is you start to find out why Tree Razor knows so much about the elves. He's got an entire library on them. And you can actually take his library.
That's cool.
Another thing is that he has an Ayadara here that he's corrupted. And in order to utilize it, you need his holy symbol, which is actually I believe it's a specific magical item that you can change into another holy symbol. Do you remember a witch called Sisyphix?
No. Sounds like
I
the
got
guy
the
pushing
name,
the
but I got
stone up the
nothing.
Okay. She was one of the people that helped that guy who got banished to the Shadow Realm when trying to weaken Tree Razor.
Right.
Oh,
Yep.
okay. Yes. Okay. She's Alvarin, or what was his name?
He's coming in book 3. We get contacted with him almost at the end of this, the conclusion to this book.
Elthian, that's his name. Yeah. All right. So she was an ally of Elthian's.
Yep. Silas Effects has seen better days. She's a banshee now.
As you do. Yep. I really like the Calistria tattoo that is bleeding. That is a very cool detail in this art piece.
She's edgy. So you have to convince her basically to affix herself to this holy symbol in order to utilize the Aidara. And she's kind of been here for a long time. She's kind of crazy. And at the same time that you're trying to convince her, there is actually a cult of Rogavagog, the Devourer, who was basically, I want to say, squatting here the whole time before the Spore Queen moved back in. So this place has seen a lot of tenants.
Are the Rovagites still here?
Yes.
Okay.
They're frog people, I think.
Why not?
I mean,
I feel like every now and then that you're reading the backstory of the adventure path, and there's like notes for the GM that the players will never understand, and it doesn't matter. It's just an excuse to put more weird villains in the dungeon, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah.
50 years ago, this was controlled by Rovagog, and their Bogard cultists are still roaming around, and the players are just going to assume these are more tree raiser cultists, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's just the
Although,
thing. Oh, go ahead.
if I had art this good of a Bogard cultist, I would use every excuse to put them in there. These guys look awesome.
They look great, yeah.
It does go on to say that the Spore Queen didn't bother to kick them out because she doesn't think of them as a threat. So you can actually recruit the Rovagog cultists to fight her with you.
I was gonna say they're Rovagug guys. Like they have no loyalty. Yeah, that's totally in character.
So we've basically gotten to the very end of the adventure, and this is where one of the best fight happens with the Spore Queen as you start to explore the spires. She's changed a little bit.
Yeah, looking good.
I'm not sure what's going on with the legs, but she can attack with tendrils, and she can make like spore pods and stuff to move around.
Is the blood like a self-inflicted wound ability from her stat block? I'm looking at it right now.
Vengeful Slice?
Ah, that would be it. Yep.
She's also distracted by failures, so you can actually play mind games with her during the fight and distract her. So if you remember what happened in Second Darkness and taunt her, it distracts her long enough for you to get advantages.
Oh, that's cool. That.
There's also a host of new clip-offs in here. This one in particular is very nice. They basically,
Weird.
yeah, they gain new organs at the same time they digest their own bodies. I'm not sure why. So she basically has these soul pods, and they're at the top of the spire. Let's see. They don't have the artwork attached to them, though, which is sad. But it's basically just his face reaching through the spore pod in pain. And when you get to the top of the spire and do this whole big fight with her, she's actually scripted from start to finish with all of her abilities. Like, that's how controlled this fight is.
Interesting.
Like, I haven't seen this before since Kebnebi and Bloodlords. More than her preferred method of whom to attack, it outright says, like, which spell she does when. Ah, yes, here we go. And the soul pods themselves act as hazards at the same time while you have the demons fighting. It's really, really well choreographed fight. And basically, at the end of it, when you do manage to defeat the Spore Queen, Silifex says her goodbyes, and like with Curtain Call, since we've been mentioning Curtain Call quite a few times now, she bestows upon you a bonus feat for helping her. So things like Die Hard, Incredible Initiative, Toughness, like things that the PCs can get that don't necessarily they would take themselves, you would get for free here as a bonus feat.
Cool.
So at this point, this is where the moon pools become involved, and I'm just not familiar with them enough to say much about them. But why are the Fae living there? Like, is that their home?
Yeah, I think there's the moon pools have got like some cool properties. So they apparently you can alter the flow of time if you know which pools to like drink from. It's one of these things I think that like I don't know to what extent they'll actually see use in this adventure, but like when they were I think when they did the original sort of Inner Sea World Guide for first edition, they would just like litter the map with these like points of interest, and they would come up with crazy things that were happening in those points of interest. So the Moonpool Causeways was like there's some weird time magic, and also there's a bunch of naiads and other fae that live in the pools, and there's a big dragon there as well. And I think sometimes they just seed stuff like that to potentially use in the future, or just like here's a cool location that maybe players will read about and be inspired by.
Mm-hmm.
So I think Fae are just drawn to like these magical places, and the moon pools, the waters of the moon pools have some magical properties.
Well, it's at this point that they realize that the Spore Queen finished her plot, unfortunately. And the entire fortress would have gained great power and the ability to teleport itself and the armies to anywhere within Galarian. Because they're starting to see, like, the Witch Bowl have actual physical qualities starting to change in it. This is also when they start to hear a strange voice, which will be the voice in the Blight, which will be the next adventure. That is going to be the elven wizard who didn't quite survive the last time. There's not much left of him. He's in the Shadow Realm. From what I understand, he
Is
has...
this Althean, or is this the other wizard that we encountered? I feel
the
like
one...
there's actually three wizards in this story so far,
Yeah, that's...
right?
That...
There's Althean, there's Morgathai, there's another guy that got sacrificed. There's a lot of elven wizards running around this adventure.
Yep, it's the one that was mentioned in the first book. Give me 1 minute, I'll get his name. But for now, what do you think so far with what we've seen? Is this something that you'd be interested in running? Because I'm
Yeah, this is
definitely
very
going to be
cool.
running it.
Yeah, I think this is really cool. I think I really liked um the first module. I love Galarian politics, so uh that council meeting with all the factions kind of coming together is a lot of fun for the way I kind of like run my games. Um, and it feels like they're using all the points of interest in Keonan that have been developed over the years, and they're calling back to a bunch of old characters. And um, I like the idea of the um I'm forgetting what they're called now, but the war events.
Mm-hmm. The war
Um,
interludes.
the war interludes, yeah, I like that. I probably like if I were to run this, I'm sure I'd massage the way that those work a little bit. Um, Althean, yeah, yeah, that's right, that's the guy. Um, but yeah, I like what I'm seeing so far. I'm really curious how this all ends in the final book.
I'm thinking it's going to come down to a showdown between Tree Razor and his father, because at that last desperate moment, he might reach out to him. That's what it feels like. It feels like it's going to be some sort of battle between worlds, especially with how Jaharlu works and what we've seen. And he's established a lot of Jaharlu spores within Keonan that we know of.
Yeah, it can be really weird. The fact that he's trying to like teleport the witch bowl, I think, is interesting. Um, it feels like they haven't really explained what's going on at the Moonpool Causeways yet either, or what they would gain from taking those. Um, maybe there's more on that in the next chapter as well.
Yeah, in general, I'm liking what I'm seeing from this AP. I think it especially here in book 2. I'm getting the, like, you are a team of like special ops guys who are taking part in a war. Like I feel like they really nailed that, like making this feel like a war theme.
Mm-hmm.
Uh and giving you guys like making it really feel like you guys are on a mission and you're only seeing one big part of this war. Like I think Mythkeeper, I'm kind of like you in that I tend to modify pretty heavily, and like I'm kind of a glutton for making extra work for myself. So I think if I was doing this, I would take those war interludes and kind of make them much
Event.
more narrative and theatrical, and make it feel like your characters are getting like snippets of this war, like war correspondence almost, because they are, in my opinion, the player should be feeling a degree of like isolation from the broader war story.
Mm-hmm.
And like they're focused on their part, but they're part of a much bigger machine. And I think this campaign does a good job with that, but that's kind of where I would push it if I was running it.
Okay.
Yeah, you and I are talking about this in very much the same way. Yeah.
So, in order to better drive the narrative, we would have the war interludes not be used as cutscenes, but more of a narrative device for the characters themselves, where they can contribute something directly, say, like to either the Queen through the research given, or with what they're doing directly in the Tanglebriar. That way, they feel like they're more of a part of it, but also that they're setting up the Queen and her forces in order to do their job.
Yeah, I also think it would depend on the mix of characters that you have in your play group, because an interesting thing sort of happens with high level games, and like you start getting access to teleportation magic. And I know that you started level 11. I don't know what level you are by sort of the midpoint here, but you start to get access to these tools that uh, make your heroes seem like they're exceptions in the world. Like there's not a lot of people that are as capable as the group that you're playing.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least that's the only way that this world makes sense in my head. Not everyone is teleporting around all the time. It's not like World of Warcraft. Um, and so I have to imagine that if they're like very visible in the warfront, that Talandia is communicating with them pretty regularly about all the different things that are happening, and that periodically they might take a break from their original purpose to go and deal with one of the war interludes. So you could actually have the war interlude be almost like a side quest, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
uh, there's an infestation in this city, there's a dragon attack in this city, and then the character. It's not like a necessarily just a news report that they receive on like how the war front is going, but that often they're there, they're participating, they're helping, and now they're back dealing with the main storyline.
That does sound much better than just making it into a cutscene. I'm not comfortable with making my players do cutscenes like that. It's 14 through 18.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The other thought I had was this is kind of playing off an idea I'm working through for my curtain call video for like how I would kind of tweak it. Um, but one way you could maybe make your heroes feel more heroic, and this is definitely a lot of work on like both GM and player, so it's definitely not going to be for every group, but like I'm thinking like what if you run the war interlude as a playable cutscene, but where the players temporarily play other characters who are not as powerful, who are kind of
yeah,
suffering through this war interlude plot, whatever it is. So like in the case of that elf village that, you know, got sacked, like maybe you're playing the characters who need to escape. And if your players chose to spend a point, then they're like, you know, they're fighting for their lives. It looks hopeless. And then the PCs show up as NPCs for this one moment. And you get to see it, like your players get to experience it from the perspective of like, hi, I'm just this low level elf. And like, there's no way I would have got out of this without the heroes. Like that might be how I would run these, but that is, again, that's a lot of work.
Yeah,
that is a ton of
Ryan.
work. But I think people would have a blast with that though, right? Like if you said, okay, for the war interludes, everybody gets to make, you know, a level 6 character to like to you know, I'm spacing on the specific war interlude, but like there's a city that's being sacked, and we're gonna do like one we're gonna dedicate one session to this particular war interlude. But especially, I love the idea of and the main PCs showing up as NPCs and like essentially appearing as these heroic figures to the low level people that are like trying to survive. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, Ryan is saying that's insane, Podfinder, but I love insane. Yeah, I do like the different types of ideas that we can do with this. I don't like just say like rattling it off and saying, "Do you spend a triumph point?"
Yeah, no, I think I definitely would want to do more with this than just the core sub mechanic of spend the triumph points, get the mechanical reward, right?
Mhm.
Hmm. Yeah, like a lot of Paizo APs, I'm seeing a lot here that has good bones and is a lot of really good stuff to work with. And you know, it's up to the GM to flesh it out. And it just kind of comes down to like how much work are you willing to put in versus how much is your group actually going to need that to have fun.
Yeah, that is
By the way, I'm
actually a.
gonna spoil something.
Mhm.
I'm gonna spoil something for the episode of War for the Crown that drops for the club members on Monday, which
Oh,
so I think
nice.
you'll see this on Monday. But the idea of everybody plays an NPC is exactly what I did in War for the Crown uh, for for an event that's coming up, and it was so much fun. Um, for that particular game, I mean, you could probably guess what I've done here because you've been following that series, Bramble. But
Mhm.
they have this like team of sidekicks that they've sort of accrued over the course of the adventure. These like
Ah,
they started
Gerda.
referring to. Yeah, exactly. So we just had a whole adventure. We had like a whole encounter that was just the side quest characters, and so everybody had like an alt sheet for that, and it was so much fun. So I'm definitely down to do more of that. That was kind of I was like, can I do this? Can I just like put my main PCs to the side for a minute and have them do this side adventure? And it worked out great.
I'm glad to hear that was such a positive experience because like again, not to derail too much, but what I'm working on for Curtain Call right now is like one of the problems I had is like all the errands that your characters have to run outside of
Oh
the
my
city
God, yes.
feels like so like most of them are easy to rework to like keep yourself in town or in Vire because like I want these two cities to be like the core, right? I want that to feel like home and like maybe two excursions is cool because like you're high level, you can travel the world. But the one that bugged me was the flowers one, where you have to go get the flowers for the dye.
The
And it's
Sarkoris
all the way over
flowers,
by
yeah.
the. Yep, it's
Yeah.
all the way over in Sarkoris, and it's like, okay, I get that I'm a high level character and I can do this, and it's fine. Teleport is, I think, rare now or uncommon, but whatever, I could hand wave that. But I was like, but you guys are producers. Producers don't do this stuff.
Yeah.
They hire runners. So my suggestion is going to be, okay, your PCs can recruit a group of runners who are themselves PCs. And then every once in a while, when everyone needs a break from like the heavy role play of Curtain Call, you take one session where the runners are going to do some like goofy side quest to try to get the flowers, and it just comes increasingly off the rails to get these stupid flowers. And then at the end of every one, you do a sending back to the PCs, and they just get this like once a week, like, okay, there are giant demon frogs here, but we're still on track to get the flowers.
We found the breastplate of
Oh,
the
that's good.
Inheritor. Is that what we were looking for?
Exactly.
Oh God. See, that to me, without getting too much more sidetracked, is what they tried to do in Triumph of the Tusk, right, Iron? Where they did those other missions where you admitted that you were contributing, and then they had kind of those side missions with the orc characters.
Keep forgetting about that. But yes.
It's really good when you actually get, players who are willing to do stuff like that. And in my personal experience, I did that in Fist of the Ruby Phoenix with Tino's Toughest. I had them fight one of the other teams as Tino's Toughest. They lost, and it was hilarious. It doesn't matter if Tino's Toughest wins. What matters is they tried their hardest. All right, but back on track though. So we have some good feelings about this AP. The war interludes are not that bad. I thought we weren't going to like them. I was of the mindset that they were very cut and dry, but I like the suggestions that we've gotten so far.
I think I didn't like the war interludes the first 2 times I read through it, only because it was difficult for me to wrap my mind around how to actually make that enjoyable for the PCs.
What would you do?
I really liked the alternate PC suggestion.
Okay.
Because a lot of those can be like independent scenarios that the players rather could have some kind of direct control over. I feel like as long as the players have some kind of hand in it, it works.
Okay. So some sort of, well, getting into how the war interludes work with like losing NPCs that they particularly know and whatnot. Would you say the delegates? Like delegates that they liked, like the Razmir guy, Alzarius? Or would you say like more the low-level elves, like the Queen's cousin and people like that? Or like a
Probably
cadre?
not the
Oh, go ahead.
probably not the delegates, because supposedly they are going to be important for book 3.
It could potentially be some of Charlelu's rangers, even. You
Yes.
should just send them, go in that direction. The Tanglebriar children, tell us what you find. All right, but we're set up in a good position for book 3, especially with that voice in the dark that's going to be talking to us. Potentially planar travel. And maybe even a trip to Jaharlu? Won't that be fun? An entire realm that's nothing more than a puffball?
Sounds lovely.
Cradle of Notch, you say?
No. No. I'm The PCs will hate me. The PCs are going to kill me as soon as we get to chapter 2 of book 3 of Wardens of Wildwood. I know they will.
I do have one minor complaint about this AP, and this is very much just a personal thing, but on
Sure.
the very slim chance that anybody from Paizo is taking advice, publish a 6-page article on the last elf deity, because I was almost certain that we were going to get the 6-page article on Yulral in this AP, and we didn't get it. We got one on Tree Razor, which is great, but like Yulral is the only elf deity that hasn't been detailed yet, and it's really frustrating.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
I did want to have a quick question, and this is probably a dumb question the lore guys will laugh at me for, but I have to ask it. Saren Ray is an elf, right?
No.
No.
Oh,
Nope.
she's not. Okay.
She's an angel.
Okay.
So, well, I mean, she's a goddess, but like she was an angel, according to some tellings, prior to her ascension.
Okay, I
Yeah.
took a look at her ears and I instantly thought elf. That was me.
Well,
No.
all the gods are basically not. They can present however they want, right? Like they can,
Yeah.
like theoretically, Sarenrae could present as an elf to elves.
Mhm.
She is one of the divinities that emerged. She's one of the early divinities. She's one of the divinities that emerged with the breaking of the Great Seal, and there was like
Like first
Pharasma, and there
8.
were like 8 original gods. Yeah, and I think she wasn't actually. You got the 8 original gods, but then you also got some like lesser divinities as well. And so at the time, I think she was a lesser divinity because she was like, and you might want to fact check this because I'm doing this from memory, but I think that during kind of the war in heaven when um, uh, Asmodeus fights Ehis, she's like Ehis's right hand lady.
Mhm.
She's like I don't know if she's the herald of Ehis, but she's definitely like she was the first one to be like to champion his point of view, and she feels like she's kind of his successor after his death. To me,
Yeah,
I don't know.
sorry.
Yeah.
It kind of depends on the telling, because depending on which version you're listening to or reading, the story changes. Because in the Wind Song Testaments, which is like widely regarded as like the maybe the most accurate account, she's just one of the core 8, but she's like considered a follower of Ehis, although I don't think that's supposed to delineate like lesser status, just that she agrees with him and like defers to him. Whereas in Asmodeus's telling in the Book of the Damned, he is lesser because he and Ehis are considered the 2 greatest. I think it really heavily depends on how old the lore source is, because obviously it's evolving, and then
Yeah.
who like the in-universe teller of the story is supposed to be, because of course Asmodeus is going to make himself seem so much better.
So, what is that elven god the god of? The one that you were mentioning before that didn't appear in the AP back matter?
Yeah, so the elf pantheon for I don't remember. I don't think you guys talked about this in the first video, at least not that I remember.
Nope, not yet.
The elf pantheon is, I mean, obviously the main one is Callistria, and then Desna is, I don't think she's officially, it's kind of unclear. Desna is kind of unofficially a member, in large part because she almost exclusively presents herself as an elf unless she is actively like trying to remain incognito. And then there's the trio of Findalad Lara, Ketifis, and Yulral. And Findalad Lara is the elven goddess of art, but she interprets art a little differently than most art deities in Pathfinder. She's all about like rigorous
Architect.
discipline, self-perfection. Yeah, architecture is her big one. Like architecture is her thing. That is her like most favorite version of art. And then Ketifis is, I mean, the easy way to think of him is like, what if Erastil was an elf? But There is some minor differences, like he's got way less of an emphasis on family. He also has a dog and a hawk who he can like they are his heralds, but he also considers them like co-deities, like uh
Yeah.
Macho and Falling Star. They are very cool. I like them a lot. And then the last one was so we have articles on all these. And then there's Yulral. And Yulral is the elven god of crystals, magic, and like gemstones. And you would think the elven god of magic would have been would have gotten the detail treatment, but it just hasn't happened yet, which is really
There are
frustrating because
3 elven
Yulral,
wizards in this adventure.
exactly. And like they've made it pretty clear, like Yulral, Ketifis, and Findalad Lara are often worshipped as a trio. Like they have shared holy spaces. Because they're all kind of like they're all equal in power, more or less, to Calistria, but they're not as like prominent culturally. So like those three tend to kind of group together. I was a little disappointed that we never got that. I'm hoping that we at least get a one pager in the Kyonin section of Shining Kingdoms, uh, because we
Yes.
haven't even gotten that.
I seem to remember from Ages of Ashes there was the Crystal Keeper dedication. I remember the Elven God of Gemstones and Magic. We dealt with them in one of the books specifically before we went to the Burning City.
It has been a long time since I read Age of Ashes. I do not remember that.
Yeah, it's been a long time since I've played, unfortunately. I vaguely remember it. One of the Ayadara keys is one of her icons.
Yeah.
All right.
She should be presented with 3, is it 3 gems, right? Like overlapping is I think the Yule symbol.
Yeah, I'm looking at the holy symbol right now. It's a red crystal, a green crystal, and a blue crystal encircled with a circle of light. It actually
Yeah.
looks a lot like the holy symbol for Findalad Lara, except you replace the hand with 3 crystals.
Yeah. Yeah. And also unofficially, I think Alceta sometimes considered as
Yeah,
well.
it kind of depends on which source you're claiming. I know older sources put her in there, and newer sources are saying like, well, no, she's more of a human goddess, but then was adopted by the elves. But yeah, she is, especially according to the wiki, she is a member.
It feels like Desna is in a lot of pantheons. I see her everywhere.
Yeah, she's definitely got the Pharasma treatment of like, yeah, everybody needs a goddess of travel, night, and luck.
Yeah, Desna is just she photobombs a lot of pantheons, and it's fine.
I
My
like the
favorite
description.
Desna. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go on.
My favorite Desna factoid is I guarantee this was something they wrote down early on in the lore and then didn't touch again until they wrote the Mwangi Expanse book. But in part of Garund, I forget exactly where. I think it's like the Sodden lands. She is merged with Gozra and is worshipped
Oh
as like
yeah.
a combined deity, Shimye Magala. I desperately want art of that because the Garundi Desna art is by far my favorite Desna art, and I just wish we could get that like weird Gozra Desna hybrid. I think that would be so cool.
Yeah, Shimye Magala. Yeah, that's one of my favorites as well. That definitely feels like one of those things where it's like, oh man, what's the term for this in real life? Like voodoo is this thing, right? Where it's like the merging of like African gods and Christian saints. Um, ah, I'm not going to come up with the word now, but
No,
there's a
I know what you're
specific
talking
term,
about though.
yeah, where like people will merge different religions, and
Yes.
I just really like that they were like, yeah, that happens in this world as well. And I think the other thing that's cool about it is since the gods are verifiable in this universe, is it raises a bunch of questions of like, you Gosray and Desna just like humor these people?
Yeah,
Do
are
they
they cool
merge
with it?
from time to time?
That's one thing I love about Divine Mysteries. Again, sorry, off topic, but like
No, go
when
ahead.
I was reading through Divine Mysteries, I appreciated that they took the time to talk about like the gods' perspective on things like, okay, the gods are verifiably real and can provide powers to anyone who worships them. Why is there a Tian pantheon? Why aren't they just worshipped everywhere? You
Yeah,
know, I appreciate that they talked about that and like offered some theories as to like why in universe that is the case. That's one thing that I've really appreciated in especially Divine Mysteries, but just more generally, like since 2E started, Paizo seems like they've been taking a really thoughtful approach to culture in general, but religion and deities in specific.
Yeah, yeah.
So, with the time we have remaining, which is about 20 minutes, what do you think about the worship of Tree Raiser? What do you think sort of things we're going to see here? What sort of things does he ask of the people who worship him and he gives his power to? He doesn't seem like the sort who would share power to me, but he apparently wants to become a full god one day, and he does have the divine spark, and he does give power to people.
I just corrupt the forest, I guess. I would assume that's his whole bag, right?
I
You
would be
hate trees?
really interested. I would be really interested to see what would happen if the PCs failed here and he became a deity. Like, not to go too crazy on like Elseworld stories, but like his
Yeah.
edicts are like corrupt plants, feast on rot, and slay elves. And I'm just
Yes.
thinking, like, man, if this guy became a god, like, what happens on Castrovel? Like, what is the madness that
Yeah,
is wrought upon that planet?
Well,
yeah,
he would
yeah.
leave the Lashunta and the Formians alone, right? He would only go for that little continent that they were on.
Maybe
Uh,
they've got plants over where the Lashunta are. The plants that need corrupting.
Yeah.
Yep, I agree. And plus, eventually you're going to run out of elves to kill, so then you're going to have to kill something else.
Yeah, and Lashunta look like elves. Easy to transfer that one over.
Mm. So, what surprised me about Tree Raiser is, particularly, his favorite animal is that little feathered dinosaur, the Dionysus, and
I
his
was just gonna comment on that.
Yeah, it's just like, I love this little guy. He reminds me of me.
Ah, that's cute. I don't know why I didn't make that connection, but of course he does.
Yeah.
It's a little tree raiser.
Now I want to play an awakened one of those who wields an axe that looks like
Yes.
a tree raiser's axe. That is the PC for this campaign.
Oh God.
I just want to be like Daddy.
That's basically the impression I got when it said like, oh, this is his favorite animal.
Oh man, if you were doing that, you could literally be like, "No, I'm going to surpass Tree Raiser. I'm going to do what he did by rebelling against my father."
Oh, that is what he did. That is. So he actually does have elves who have betrayed elven society in his employ. And he considers them his greatest works. So he does kill elves, but there are elves that come to him willingly. They're basically the people within elven society who have either been ostracized and cast out, or feel as though they don't have any other place to go.
Yeah, there's a specific elf in I think his name is Jingle Fingers. In
Oh, I
which
remember
is
him.
like
That guy's
okay,
horrifying.
yeah, he is. He's that gets they have a couple of like standalone adventures that are tucked in with Second Darkness for whatever reason, and Jingle Fingers is an elven cultist of tree raisers, and there's that they just have like a little dungeon. It's like an unresolved plot line, I think, essentially. Um, this isn't him, is it? Is he
No,
back? No, this is
no.
no.
This is
Oh
a
man, look
typical.
at those elf ears. Look at the
Yeah.
necklace.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's exactly what you'd expect, right? It's like somebody that's basically ostracized and down on themselves and like wanders off into the muck, and then somebody promises them a way to be great, but it's by killing everyone.
Yes, that is actually one of his tenets, which is cut your roots. Escape unwanted responsibilities or the circumstances of your birth.
That's cool. That's an interesting aphorism.
And nothing flourishes for. Excuse me, I'm still getting over the COVID and whatnot. Pardon me. Nothing flourishes forever. Prosper in darkness. He has no sacred text. No one has written down anything about him. He prefers that you corrupt elven texts with mold and fungus.
I like that. I like that when they get creative with the sacred texts for the deities.
So everything that he teaches is word of mouth.
Just going back to something that you said earlier about, like he does give power to others. It's
Yes.
not clear to me. I don't know, Podfinder, if you've got thoughts on this. You do a lot of videos on the gods. It's not clear to me that the gods, when the gods give power to mortals, that they're actually giving up any power at all. I think that's just something in their ability to do. So
So
why not?
this actually has been addressed a little bit. Have you had a chance to read Divine Mysteries yet?
I have not.
Have, but
Okay.
I may have missed a particular footnote.
Okay, so Ivali is your, so for those of you who might not be aware, the text is basically a narration. It's a doctoral thesis on divinity by a psychopomp named Ivali. And Ivali is theorizing that gods are made of a special, like, not matter, not energy, like other thing. Yeah, what she calls it. I
Quintessence,
literally
maybe.
flipped. Sorry, what was that? No, it
Quintessence.
she calls it something. She specifically says it's not quintessence. It's more than that. It's a measurement of power as opposed to quintessence, which she kind of describes as more of like a measurement of
Soul
everything
stuff.
else.
Yeah.
But her theory, which again, that like I like how they presented this because they can retcon it and just say Ivali was wrong. But her theory is that the amount of power that gods give off to like provide to their followers is minuscule compared to the amount of power that they can muster themselves, to the point that as long as you're like a divinity, as long as you have a divine spark, you can basically do it forever,
Mhm.
because
Yeah.
it is in some way offset by the power you get from being worshipped. I'm kind of summarizing a little bit, but that's kind of the, because you're not actively using the power, you can give away more of it to servants than like basically you're
Yeah.
creating
Divine
power.
entities are so powerful they radiate power. There's like power runoff, right? And
Exactly. It
so
has to come out somehow, and like the pressure valve to release it is clerics casting spells in your name.
Huh.
yeah, that's cool.
So they're like power plants or something? They actually.
That's actually one theory that she has in the book, is that if a god didn't, and this she admits this has been disproven in some cases, so maybe it doesn't always apply, but one theory she has is that if a god who is extraordinarily powerful were to lose all their followers suddenly, they might just blow up because there's too much power and it's not going anywhere.
Oh.
Well, doesn't Xander Ghoul sort of disprove that? Like he was basically a hidden god for ages, right? That's his deal.
Yeah, she admits that there are multiple like things that disprove it, but it's a fun theory that she brings up. I think Xandergul isn't the perfect example because like it's true, but he also was like he's a lesser divinity. Like he's a god, but I would put him, because he can be killed, I would put him more on the scale of like an imperial lord.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. I was just thinking of like gods that have been around for a while that don't have worshippers. I'm sure there's other examples.
Oh yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
especially with the ones like the great old ones where they, there are probably a million out there that we don't know about.
Ah, yes, like
yeah,
with the newborn in Starfinder. They can pop up at any time.
I need to brush up on my Starfinder lore because I'm drawing a blank when you're talking about that.
So there's a new god that happened in one of the Pact worlds that was originally a burnt out moon where a lot of cultists used to be, called Acturn, and it was basically an egg for an old god baby, and then it
Oh, cool.
hatched, destroying the planet.
oh,
And then
yeah.
Shellen came, and Shellen was like, "No, don't eat it." And then another old one tried to eat the baby, and she tries to save the baby. She gets hurt really badly, and that's where Zon Kuthon merges with her and becomes Zon
Okay.
Shallan.
This is where Zon Shellen came from. Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
And it's very weird because Shellen and Zon Kuthon seemed like polar opposites, and now they have the same clerics. And we talked about that in our Starfinder 2e games and whatnot. I actually had a mystic as one of my players there.
That's so weird. I'm kind of cool.
It is.
Yeah,
It
like you,
is.
I'll need to brush up on my Starfinder lore. I've read through all the original Starfinder book, but I've not been like following what's going on with Starfinder Society or the adventure paths or anything that's Starfinder 2e. I haven't really read up on yet.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to have that ready if I can, if like health permitting and whatnot. I was trying to get that done this week. Didn't work out.
That's going to be your first lore video, right? You're going to get in on the on the
I
lore
I
tubing game, is that right?
I already have an hour's worth of the video created. I've just gotten the societies now, and I'm working through the APs and stuff. I'm about to confer everything that people need for second edition once we get our new books in summer. I want my players to be prepared. I want that,
Okay.
if that is your first live play experience, I want it to be I want it to be good, that you can be on the level with everybody else.
That's so cool.
But Tree Razor, he didn't seem like the typical demon lord to me, at least. I know he's all about corruption and everything like that, but it seems like he's okay with everyone seeing him as a weaker force than he actually is. In fact, he prefers it, because that way they leave him alone so he can scheme.
Yeah, there is something weird about. I mean, I forget how long the IUD elves have been back in Galarian now, right? It's about 1,000 years. Like, if you think in the real world of like, there's like a chunk of your country that's you know uh, uh, an evil like cult has taken control of, and that chunk of the country remains more or less intact for 1,000 years. I mean, I know the time frame is always a bit wonky in Pathfinder. Like
Mm-hmm.
Pathfinder's a very long, long history, and society does not advance all that much. Um, you sort of don't think about it too much, but still, it does feel like he's flown under the radar for a very long time.
Well, it's with good reason. I thought personally that he was going to have a pact with his father at this point and come out guns blazing, but that is not the case. Um, he's trying. It seems like he stole the Jaharlu spores when he ran away, And that's what's been accumulating his real power and his real advantage, is that he he borrowed this or stole this from his father, and he's going to use it to exploit against the elves.
It's cool.
The thing that gets me the most is because there's a discrepancy within the first book that I wanted to touch on with you guys. There are magical wards protecting the Jaharlu spores. Those were not discussed in any of the Jaharlu spores that we found in Book 1, Chapter 2, or Chapter 3. So it's just like, well, now they exist because otherwise we could find them too easily, it feels like.
The wards are on which ones?
They're on all the Jaharlu spores, protecting people from finding them. But the elves are still aware that they are there. They just don't know where. It feels like... Oh, go ahead.
And those wards were placed by Tree Razor.
I believe so, yes. Because
or his minions, yeah.
Right. Protective wards that keep you from, like scrying on where the Jaharlu spores are.
Okay,
exactly.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
It feels like if you had something like that, you'd still get away with not playing your hand at the end of book 1, but still that you had to blow up green gold. You had to get the action started. And he actually does have a lot of orcs in his regime.
Yeah, that was Podfinder's theory from the beginning. I was like,
Yep.
he'd go with some disillusioned orcs. That makes sense.
The logic was definitely there.
Shall we close out?
Yes, definitely. Thank you for bearing with me so far. I was starting to struggle at the end there because I'm just recently recovering from COVID and all. Thank you very much for attending. Podfinder, thank you very much for coming on to the show. Mythkeeper, thank you for returning. And Iron, thank you as always for joining me to help co-host.
Yeah, looking forward to coming back. This was awesome.
Oh, thank
This
you
was
very
fun.
much, sir. Yeah. I'd love to have you for book 3 when we do a wrap-up and the conclusion.
I feel like at this point I gotta see how this whole thing pans out.
Tree Razor will die.
That's my assumption, is that Tree Razor will die. But we won't know until we read it.
Well, thank you very much, gentlemen. I hope you all have a wonderful night. If you'd like to briefly say who you are and where we can find your work again, please do.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. I am Podfinder Phil. You can find me at Podfinder on YouTube.
And I'm the Mythkeeper. You can find me at the Mythkeeper on YouTube.
And I am Iron Bear Jones, and my blog is on WordPress, ironbeargames.wordpress.com.
I'll make sure to get that pinned in Discord, sir. Have a wonderful night, gentlemen, and thank you.